play has always entrenched me as to I want to make sure that I don't mess this up. There's as I've looked into it all these years I've been umpiring, there's always nuances to play. A lot of people have different opinions. So what we want to do today is we want to go through, give a brief history of some cool videos and that actually took place and kind of a history of what what was obstruction, what was interference, how it's being ruled now at the major league level, the college level, the high school level, and really after we'll show a couple of beginning videos, then we'll have some rules. We'll go through the rules. We're going to cover college and high school because that's what probably everybody here is either going to do college or high school. If you're doing a tournament, game day, or any of the other tournaments, they're always going to say, well, we're playing by official Major League Baseball rules. And I say, okay, well, Fed rules then. You know, we want to, with the kids, you always go with the Fed rules because they got the highest degree of safety levels in there. And most of the coaches don't know the difference between Fed rules and OBR rules anyway. So in order to make it easier for yourself, that's what a lot of you guys are working with is high school rules. You do a game day tournament, especially for the safety rules, go by the Fed rules.
And one, obviously these plays to play, they can, I think Al, experienced guys would agree that they can be the most sort of volatile when there's first of all, a run scoring. No matter what, anytime a run scores, someone's going to be at the run scores. So when you're calling somebody out for malicious contact, you're probably taking a run off the board and you're removing a player from the game. And in high school, you're removing them from the game. So that, if it happens, obviously, you got to make the call, you got to call it. But it is going to be a situation every time you do it that someone's going to be upset, which is why it's really important to take your time, process it, figure out what happened, replay the play in your head a couple of times if you have to, and know your situations and know the rule. It's really important, and that's why these when we show these videos, it's good to watch these because these things happen really quickly. And if you're new and you've never experienced it before, you see it and you're like, oh, that just happened, and then all of a sudden people are yelling, screaming, and dads are yelling, the moms are yelling, and the circus comes to town really quick if you don't handle it properly. So we're going to show the first one we're going to show happened. I wasn't alive, but Ted was.
I watched the game live, but who counts age, right?
I was not even an idea when this play happened. So.
But and we all remember in the backyard what's the coolest things, as growing up as a kid. It's the goal line defense, getting in there with your buddies and just smacking heads. We all grew up just loving to play at the plate, watching TV and watching the collisions between the pitchers or the catchers and the runners. Well, this is the one that really got it all started. And let's hope that let's hope that everything works right. Some of you will remember it. You see it all right? No.
Yeah, it's Roy Fossey. All-Star 1970.
Now, if you look at this play compared to today, and I don't know what. Okay. The thing that really, the only thing that really made this play unusual was that it was an all-star game. It really didn't mean anything, but that was the type of player that Pete Rose was. It didn't matter to him. He wanted to win the game. And we're going to definitely be audio challenged here, technical challenge. But
this is a Pete Rose montage.
Oh, Pete Rose montage. Yeah, everybody remembers him, how hard-nosed he was. But once we get back to the video, you'll see that when this play was developing, Ray Fossey got right in the line, and he braced himself for that collision. He knew it was coming. That's how baseball was played back then.
Well, one of the is obviously in high school, they've obviously really tried to clean a lot of that up, and even in the pros today, they're really trying to clean that up, remove that from the game. So as fun as it is to watch, and we all get all excited about it, it is something that. Yeah, I think it's
here's the play. And now you can see Fossey's all ready for it. He's ready for the action, and then Rose just booms him. So. So that's really the play that really got everybody's attention to how violent that collision could be at home plate. You know, the next one we wanted to go through here is this is the Buster Posey play. This is what made Major League Baseball change the rule. This was the Buster Posey rule now.
Posey ended up getting severely hurt.
If you look at this play, once they go in with the replay, Posey actually had pretty good position on the play. He wasn't obstructing or anything. The runner went after him. He's in front of the plate. Yeah, but
He even, if you look at
he caused his own injury.
right.
Posey did give him a path to the play.
Yeah,
So
that's still dangerous right there.
Right. But he just lowered his boom at him.
And again, clearly this happens in a high school game. That guy's done for the day.
How would you guys call that? What would be your call?
That happened in your first high school game. What happened?
Mine?
Yeah.
I didn't play baseball in high school.
No, your first game. You're
umpiring that, and you got
you're umpiring a freshman game. At
Oh, if that happened in front of me.
Here, yeah. What happened?
Objection?
Is the run score or no?
No.
So how do you manage the situation? So guy blows up, blows the catcher up.
It's just like if the coach assists the runner, he's out there. If too rough on the opponent, then are you not going to punish him?
No, absolutely. He's thrown out. In a high school game, that guy's out. He's out of the game.
Which is contact.
Malicious contact, yeah.
100%.
Use that word.
Yep.
Correct in the rule. Contact on the runner. Always eject.
All the other runners go back. Yep. And at dead ball at the time of the infraction. So if you had guys run around, especially if you're working a game by yourself, which, you know, if you're working a lower level game, if you're a new guy, you're not going to have a partner. So you obviously immediately see the play. You're going to have to do the best you can. If the bases were loaded and it's, you know, the second run coming in, you're just going to have to kind of look up and see, okay, where were they, and make the call. That's why if you end up having a partner, you have to sell the call or own the call at the plate. So you're the plate umpire. The only thing you're going to your partner on that is, okay, where were the runners? Was the guy that hit the ball, was he already at second base when the contact happened, or wasn't he? You might ask your partner for that. But that's 100% the plate umpire's call. You have to watch when that happens to see, are players leaving the dugout, are players leaving their positions, because that's, again, can be a really nasty situation. I've never had that happen. I don't know if anybody.
The key to that is you have to call it right away. Because if you delay it all and start hearing a coach say that was malicious contact and then you call it, you're in trouble. If it happens, if it seeps in your head that it's malicious, you have to call it right then.
They'll know. I mean, I remember the first time I've had it happen, I think 5 or 6 times. And the first time I saw it, it was like, oh yeah, that's what that is.
Right.
For when you'll hear it.
Yeah. But not every collision is malicious. That's we'll show some of the other videos will show it. I don't want one thing you don't want to walk away from this is every time
the runner runs into the catcher, he's ejected. That's not true. There's a lot of situations where you can have an incidental contact at the plate and the runner's not out. Maybe it's obstruction by the catcher and it wasn't malicious, and score the run and move on with your day.
You'll also see in these videos the difference of what we just talked about, how decisive, because you've got some major league umpires that are right on top of it. Then you got some travel ball or high school umpires that are just kind of, trying to figure out what happened, so it's never going to, it's not really easy all the time to make that call. And, you just got to do the best you can.
These type of plays too, like you're going to see it and your heart's going to start racing.
Right.
Because like it's a physical situation. The catcher could be hurt. The runner could be hurt. You're going to have a coach screaming and yelling. There's fans screaming and yelling. And that's when you need to use your timing. Like plays like this that happen and your reaction to it really can show what happens in the game too. And like you're gonna have to fight yourself, and the adrenaline's gonna go, especially when goofy shit happens. That's when you gotta fight that back. And the plays, these are the most it's a football play. Guys are getting taken out, and that's not what usually happens. And you gotta how you react to makes big difference. And it's like the timing part of it really makes a difference.
So the federal for obstruction is obstruction is an act, intentional or unintentional, as well as physical or verbal, by a fielder or any member of the defensive team or its personnel that hinders the runner or changes the pattern of the play. And changing the pattern of the play is what kind of sticks with me, because there's different ways a catcher can get to the plate. And as we get to this, I mean, I prefer in high school for the catcher to be in front of the plate and leaving that base path open, but that's not absolute rule to say that they can't be on that baseline. But it certainly can be argued in my case that, hey, if he's hindering the runner by making him run around and out of his normal path. So does anybody have any questions on what obstruction actually is? I know we have a good mixture of newer guys here, which is great. So,
what about the difference between obstruction and interference?
Offensive team wins.
So who interferes and who obstructs?
Offensive player interferes.
Okay, and then
The defensive player obstructs.
so how does how you call that change? So how is interference handled differently than obstruction? Which one's a dead ball immediately? Interference. And obstruction, I always think of it as like in football. You throw a flag, let the play hand.
Wait to see the results.
See the result of the play, and then after the play's over, you you figure out where the guy would have gone based on the obstruction.
be careful when you see obstruction. You want to point and verbalize it, but you got to remember that the play is continuing, and you want to use your left hand, because if you're sticking your right hand out there, you're confusing the guys with an out sign. So that's obstruction. You see a runner running, even if it's on the base paths or wherever you see it, you point to where you see it, and you say that's obstruction. Then you follow the rest of the play. So you got to kind of glance to where all the runners are at that point, because there's base awards depending. The obstruction is at the end of the play, so you got to make sure you get the runners in the right place, but you got to know where they are. All right.
And the younger the kids are, the more likely they're not going to. The kids and the coaches aren't going to know what they're supposed to do. So it's going to happen that where you do everything right, there's a play out in the infield or whatever, and there's obstruction at third base when the guy's round at third, and you go do what you're supposed to. That's obstruction, and then everybody's going to stop because they think that because there was contact and because the umpire said something that means that the play's over. So you just have to be prepared for that and know how to handle that situation. Obviously, guy gets obstructed rounding third base. You based on what you think was going to happen, he's going to score. Even if he stops, he still gets to play. He doesn't. If he ends up stopping, he ends up stopping. But I've had it happen before, where it's an act by the defense, and then the runner just stops because he's not really sure what he's supposed to do, and that's going to happen. Now, the older the kids, they know the rule. The coaches know the rule. They're more likely to they keep going, which is obviously what you want to have happen.
It's always going to be at least a one base award to the next base. So if it happens between first and second, he's going to at least get second base. You know, it's your judgment as to whether or not he could have made third or whatever, but generally he's going to second. The one play that you got to, you know, as far as an obstruction play, a pickoff play at first base. The runner's going back to first. The first baseman just kneels down in front of it, tags him out. That's obstruction. The guy now, he gets second base. You know, there's always that one base penalty for an obstruction call. So if you see that and you see the first baseman, how they like to catch the ball and kneel and block the base off, if you got obstruction on that, he gets second base. Fielder. The fielder without possession of the ball denies access to the base the runner is attempting to achieve. That's all another part of obstruction. And when a play is being made on a runner or a batter runner, he establishes his baseline as directly between his position and the base toward which he's moving. Okay, so as you're trying to establish a clear path to the base, you have to remember also you want to get a view of what is his path, where is he at, and what is his direct path to the base. Okay, the direct path, in my opinion, the direct path to home plate isn't a catcher here with his legs spread apart, waiting for a ball to come in and saying that you're giving him a roundabout way. You know, that to me, that's obstruction. Some people may argue that, but that's, I mean, I can back it with rules. They're saying he's being obstructed to his base, a direct path to home plate. If a catcher does straddle the base, and I mean, I would really err on the side of the offense if he goes down and blocks it before he gets the ball, because once the catcher has the ball, he's more than welcome to go into the baseline. In high school, he has to have the ball to go into the baseline or the base path.
What if the goal pulls him into the baseline?
Okay. Well, we'll cover that because that's a college rule, and in high school, there's no in the act of fielding. So if the throw pulls him into the runner, that's obstruction in high school. If the throw pulls him into the fielder in college, that's legal. Okay. Then, and we'll get into that a little bit further. But if you're sticking to high school, if the throw takes a bad hop and it goes in and the catcher reaches into the baseline to get the ball, he's obstructed the runner, and the runner is safe. Here's a Fed case play coming up, and this is right out of the book. F2 is in the path between the third base and home plate while waiting to receive a thrown ball. R1 advancing from third base runs into the catcher, after which R1 is tagged out. Ruling, it's obstruction. F2 cannot be in the base path without the ball in his possession, nor can he be in the base path waiting for the ball to arrive without giving runners some access to home plate.
Now, if the malicious contacting rule that we talked about before with the Fosse play, that supersedes the obstruction. So if on this case play, if it said the R1 lowers his shoulder and blows up the catcher, well, yeah, it was obstruction, but the malicious contact takes precedent and the guy's out and he's ejected.
I got a question for you.
Yep.
Runner's coming around third. Third baseman gets in his way. The ball is down at the catcher. And he's already past third and he runs into the third baseman because the third baseman is trying to block him from going home.
Mm-hmm.
Ball takes one bounce, gets to the catcher.
Yep.
Are we calling obstruction and giving him home?
I am.
I would have to see where he was at. If he's heading into third base,
Is he rounding third?
He hit third. He's one step off, and the third baseman, for some reason, decides to run over in front of him.
I'm probably giving him home plate.
Even though he would have never made it safely, you're going to give him the obstruction and give him one base because he had already passed.
Because you can't assume that the catcher is going to make the play because What if he bends over the pick? What if he bends over to pick the ball and drops it? Or what if he goes to tag the guy and he slides and knocks the ball loose?
Obstruction, when you call, it's a one base penalty. So if he's already past third, I'm giving him home as well. Because you're calling, that's why I asked if he was going into third, I'm not going to give him home. If he's past third and he's 3 feet past third, rounding the base, and he runs into the third baseman, and you call obstruction, then you got to give him home. I mean, there's a base award there.
If he's before third base, if he's running from second to third, he's protected to
He's
third
protected
base.
to third base.
Third, but not to home. So
Right.
in your situation, if he bumps into him right before third base, that's obstruction, and he decides to take off, thinking that the obstruction means he gets almost like a freebie, and he's tagged out at the plate. To me, he's out.
He needs to know the rule.
Before the base, right? If he's only protected to third base, yeah.
What I find confusing is the statement about the catcher going after the ball.
Correct.
Let's say the catcher's just standing in front of home plate,
Uh-huh.
nowhere near in the baseline,
Right.
and the throw from the outfield is bouncing in 3 feet up the line, and he's running to get the ball right on the baseline, and he collides with the fielder. Is that interference or obstruction?
In high school, that's obstruction. If he runs in front and
He's chasing the ball.
So,
right.
One of the rules of thumb is that you penalize the person or the team that did what they're not supposed to do.
Right.
And so, as crass as it sounds, the option whoever should have made a better throw.
If you're fielding it, it's different than if you're trying to receive a catch, a roll.
Yeah.
Quick question for you.
Mhm.
Could you help give some perspective on that word "some" and "some access to home plate"?
You're a catcher? Or
Well, that's why this rule is so ambiguous as far as how you judge it as an umpire. I mean,
Is that
you know,
some?
it's really a judgment call as to how you're going to call what is access to the plate. I could tell you what my access to the plate is. It's probably going to be different than other people's, you know. So, I mean, that's how the rule reads: some access to the plate. But it's like I said, that's a real judgment call, and I always err on the side of the offense trying to get to the plate. I don't know. Some of you other guys, that have been around a long time, Jerry, what do? You err on the side of the offense or the defense on, as far as access to home plate?
Well, if at any base, you have the opportunity as the runner to get to the base, I mean, if they leave you that much room, they're blocking part of it, but give you access to the base, then you don't have obstruction. But if they're blocking your access, for example, a catcher may be straddling the line. If he's a foot in front of home plate down the third baseline, you have access to it sliding between his legs. But if he's 6 feet up the line and you're doing the same thing, then you probably have obstruction because you're not gonna be able to slide that.
Right.
And then I would say, okay, like that same situation, if I have to go through your personal space, then I have to go through you and I am impeded.
Right.
So if he's straddling the line, the access is not, if I have to go through his person, or through his personal space, we say, when I taught elementary school, go through your moment, then you're blocking my access and it's not impeding that. I don't remember the last time I called obstruction in a play, to be honest with you. Most of the kids, they teach them the right way now.
Right.
But a lot of times, like, yeah, when the throw goes up and the catcher reaches for it, it goes to the fence anyway. And if it goes to the fence,
You're
one of the
safe,
kids can
yeah.
get up and touch the plate, you don't have to call obstruction. If you do, nobody will pay attention. But like I said, like, I don't, if the straddle line, like, you gotta go through somebody, then it's not. And then, they have to give him enough so he can, I look at it as, like, if he can slide straight through the plate, with part of his body, it's gonna be feet first most of the time. As long as he can get to the back end of the plate, that's what I look for.
Yeah.
You say when the catcher gets the ball and it pulls him into the line,
Mhm.
and the runner runs into him, they're sliding into him,
Right.
and he hasn't tagged him, even though he's caught the ball in his glove. and he's got the plate blocked now, and because it pulled him in there, the kid sliding in hits his leg and stops short of the plate. To me, that's obstruction.
Absolutely.
If he
Yeah,
tags him,
right.
he tags him as he's coming in, and he's again sliding before he hits the kid, then he's going to be out. The way
If the ball is pulling him into the baseline before he catches it, and he catches it and makes contact, and the kid stops short of home plate, you have obstruction. Now, if he catches the ball and then goes in and tags the guy, and at that point he can go and he can block the plate, right? So he can block it and tag the kid, and if he's short of home plate, you got nothing.
Now, one other question.
Yep.
Good. So the kid comes into the home plate, slides, the catcher, the ball goes away to the fence, and he obstructed. Now, you pointed and you said obstruction. The kid that slid in doesn't touch the plate and goes to the bench. Now, if they appeal that he never touched the base, do you get to call him out?
If he made no effort to return, then he's eligible for appeal. He's got to touch the base. It's a obstruction.
Even though you've awarded it.
Right. I don't award. I don't automatically
yeah.
give the guy the bases. Every base award has to be touched.
Right.
So whether it be interference or anything on the bases have to be legally touched. Yep.
At what point do you call? What point do you deem that it's obstruction? So catcher's in the line, the kid's only halfway down the line, or at what point do you come down the line, the catcher's in the way without the ball, you deem it obstruction?
I wait till the last minute till the play develops because he can move. What I'm doing is right.
Your decision.
Right. I'm third baseline extended watching that, as it's developing. So I'm really watching the runner more so, and the catcher. I see where the catcher's set up, and I'm watching the runner to see what he does. If he goes 3/4 of the way down, as Al describes, and all of a sudden he slows down or stops, he's being impeded. So I'm watching to see how that plays out, right? So you don't have to call that when he's 3/4 of the way up the baseline. You watch the play. At least I'll watch the whole play, but I'm reading what's that runner, what's he thinking about what he's running into. So I'm watching him to see what his actions are and see if the catcher, if he moves up and the guy's still 1/4 of the way down the line, then it doesn't matter where he was set up. He's not in the base path. He doesn't impede anything. So I like that third baseline extended for that. Then I adjust as the play develops and move with the catcher. But to watch it, I'm watching from the third baseline, watching the runner, watching the catcher, because I don't need to watch the throw coming in. I've got a partner out there on the bases that can watch all the other stuff. My main concern is what's happening here, because it's a big. Everybody knows that's a big play, the obstruction or the play at the plate.
To me, once the answer to Al's question, once the runner starts changing what he's doing.
Right.
So once the runner starts, okay, I'm stopping or I'm going back or I'm running in a straight line, then start curving one way or the other, that's the minute that the obstruction is called. Is when the runner starts to change.
Well, if he stops
what he's doing
halfway down, and the catcher doesn't have the ball, and he turns around, and goes back to third, there's no obstruction.
No,
that's why you watch and see. You watch and see how it plays out, right?
Right.
He could be deciding, do I want to hit? Like you said, okay, I'm going to be out if I keep going. I'm going to turn and go back home. So that's why you have to watch, see what happens. If he's 3/4 of the way down and I'm calling obstruction and then he stops and starts running back, I'm going to look pretty foolish, right? So I wait.
Yeah, yes, he has to commit to, even if it's going from second to third, he's got to commit to going where the next base.
So now we're still in high school and we've got the play at the plate. Now we've got malicious contact. We've got obstruction. The catcher's got the base blocked off and the runner plows into him. What do you got then?
Malicious contact trumps any obstruction.
All right.
So how do you know when it's malicious and how do you know when it's just two goofy kids not knowing where they're supposed to go?
He's leading with his
by his intent.
Right.
So yeah, so the two things I always look for is do his arms come out or does his shoulder drop? Those are the two give me telltale signs that I am trying to hurt somebody.
It's 100% about intent. And it's like I said, that's why I like to watch the runner and the catcher and see what's happening as this play is developing. I had a game, a 15U game out at Lippo last summer. In 15U, you got men and you got boys playing. They haven't grown yet. They haven't hit their spurt. So I got this kid coming in from third base who's soaking wet, weighs 80 pounds. And I got this catcher who's ready to go to play at Iowa or something. He's this big bull, and he's making the play. The kid, I'm watching, the ball's coming in. The catcher's getting the ball. He has it. The boy on third base gets about 3/4 of the way down. He knows he's going to be out. He stops almost, and I could see as I'm watching this, I could see his mind going, "What am I going to do?" So he decides he's going to run the catcher. So he stops, then he starts up, and he goes inside the baseline because the catcher was in front of home plate. And as fast as he can, he runs to the catcher, lowers his shoulder, hits him, and flies 5 feet backwards. Well, that's malicious contact. I banged him out of the game, and the coach comes out as his boy's lying on the ground, almost in tears, asked me why I kicked him out of the game. I said, well, it was, next year, that boy can be 16 years old and 40 pounds heavier. If he got away with it this time, he's not going to understand the rules of the game. So that's, so it's all about what their intent is on that play. I think we just went through some of the mechanics of how we call it for high school.
You want to make it loud, back obstruction, not so loud that everybody stops, but just so the people on the field at least know that the call was made. Once action stops, that's when you make your base awards. And again, if you're working with a partner, it could be a situation where you might want to get together with your partner. Especially if it's something complicated and there's 2 or 3 runners running around trying to figure out where everybody's supposed to go.
When you're working high school games, like Al said, most of the varsity catchers and the higher level catchers, they've already been coached not to get in the base path. They're already catching the ball out in front of home plate. A lot of times I'll have conversations back and forth with the catcher as the game is going on, whether it be balls or strikes or whatever the case may be. And I always kind of give them a reminder, hey, when the play is developing at the play, I'll say, if he's getting too far in the line, I'll say, hey, move up a little bit, move up a little bit. You could whisper and talk to them a little bit without actually coaching them because they know what they're supposed to do, but they also want to try and get away with a little bit too. So it's all right. I do it anyway. So, you got the line block, move up. So you want to get them out of there. But at the lower levels, they may not know that. And if some of you guys are starting out, you're going to see this probably more than what Al sees it at the varsity level. The freshman level, you're going to see some crazy stuff this year.
On A4.2 over there, where it says that the runners will be awarded appropriate bases.
Correct.
If they haven't made it to the base, he's a foot away from third base and he was on second when the malicious contact happened, don't you send him back to second? Or do you give him third base because he would have made it there if there hadn't been malicious?
Well, if it was malicious, so you're saying there's obstruction. So malicious, he's out of the game anyway. So what you're saying is, so there was some sort of obstruction. So
it didn't have to be obstruction because he's got the ball. The guy just comes in and whacks him. That's going to be malicious contact.
Yeah, and he's out. And
he's going to be out.
Ejected
It's a dead ball immediately.
Yeah.
And the runners, wherever they're at, should be sent back to the last base touch. Is
Correct.
My understanding.
Yeah. So,
but if he's a foot away, that leaves me.
No, so that's 2 different things. So malicious contact. So let's say there's a play at the plate and the runner barrels into the catcher. You call that's out. He's out and he's out of the game. Malicious contact. And you look up and there's a guy that's 3 steps away from second base. The guy that hit the ball. He's going back to first base. He's not achieved second base yet. What that says, umpire judgment, that's when there's an obstruction and there is no malicious contact. So runners are on first and second. There's a base hit to center field, and the runner on second base, or the shortstop, gets in the way of the guy that started at second. So then you have to decide, was he going to score? You know, was the guy that on first, you know, did he have to alter his path because of the collision? There's a whole bunch of things that are going on. And you just have to make the decision as the umpire. If that collision doesn't occur, based on where the ball was hit, based on what you see, what your eyes tell you, where all those runners go.
It's a lot more difficult in one man at the lower levels because your main focus is going to be home plate. You don't know where the runners are. You just use your best guess as to, because once you call malicious contact, the ball is dead, and probably err on the side of the defense end, because if he knocks the ball out of the catcher's glove, I'm not going to award the guy running to second, third base. I'll probably just keep him at second. When you're working two-man, as soon as you call malicious contact, your partner's on top of that. He's placing runners because that's what he's out there for. So he'll see that, and he'll say, you stay there, you stay there. All right, so it's a little bit different. One man, I mean, there's a little bit more guesswork on when 3 or 4 things are going on at once. You're lucky to
You
get.
don't want them to know there's guesswork. You just tell them.
No.
So like the simplest explanation is there's nobody on base, and the guy hits a ball over the center fielder's head, and as he's rounding first, the first baseman gets in his way, and there's contact. So you immediately go, that's obstruction, and let's say the guy pulls up to second base. You have to look, and based on where the ball was hit, was he going to get a triple, was he going to get a double, was he going to get a home run? And again, it's just judgment.
The only thing I don't agree with is, and there's contact. It doesn't have to be contact.
No, it doesn't have to be. Yeah, but I'm just saying there is.
Obstruction.
Let's say there is contact.
Go to the obstruction, you just let it go anyway. It usually works out. It doesn't 80% of the time.
But it's the 20% that bites in
That's
the
the
butt.
one you have to call. I know.
If you see it, you better call it.
You see it, you call it.
I'll tell you, the coaches see it.
Yeah.
They've got eyes in the back of their head, and they got 15 guys in the dugout looking for that every time too. So if you don't call an obstruction call and it's out there, somebody's going to say something to you.
Most of the time it works out.
So that covers all the Fed rules. I don't want to spend too much time on the NCAA rule. I just wanted to go over it a little bit because it covers some of the unique difference between the two rules. And somebody may ask you, you know, you're doing a high school game, and they may say, well, how come you can't do this, or how come you can't do that? Then you'll say, well, that's the college rule, and you'll know it, right? So here's the difference. In college, the ball is type 1 instruction when the ball is being played on, and it's a dead ball immediately, kind of like interference, and all base awards runners are awarded bases they would have reached had there been no instruction. Rules Committee added the big note in the act of fielding, and that's in college now, and that is just so in college, if that throw takes the catcher into the runner, he's entitled to go there to make the play. There, and if you're doing a college game, what you have to watch for on the collision rule is they still have the malicious contact, but they also have train wreck incidental contact, whatever you want to call it. If that ball takes the catcher into the runner and the runner does not make an attempt to take him out, but they do collide, they just call it a baseball play and they let it go. So if you were calling it by the college rule, you would have to look really closely for the intent of the runner. A collision can be accidental in college, and they eliminated that in high school by saying if you're in the act of fielding, you can't be in the baseline or in the base path. And in college, a runner attempting to score may not deviate from his direct path to the plate in order to initiate contact with the catcher or otherwise initiate an avoidable collision. If the umpire determines runner initiated contact, he shall declare the runner out. Now in college also, if he makes contact, they're not necessarily calling it malicious contact, but they're calling him out. I don't think that there is malicious contact in college. It's an ejection plus the ejection for the next game as well. But they also allow for a little bit of judgment as to it not being a malicious contact. It's just making contact. And this just says the catcher without possession of the ball has no right to block the pathway of the runner attempting to score. I like this because it's the only one I found that actually used baseline, which I always use. No other rule says that it's always a clear pathway, but the baseline belongs to the runner and the catcher and should be there only when he is fielding the ball or when he already has the ball in his hand. So we got a bunch of videos.
You had a bunch of videos.
Yeah.
Where's the mouse?
Every time I click it, it moves to the next screen.
I'll call it tech coach, right?
Yeah. Some of these videos, we got about 5 or 6 videos here. So there's some good discussion to see some of these plays. And hopefully we actually get them working. The first one. What's going on there?
Obstruction on the computer.
Yeah.
It's gonna be in a couple minutes if it doesn't work.
Try exiting out.
Say it again?
Exit out of the presentation, just like, yeah, not a presentation mode, then click the video.
We haven't been journalists.
We've got some other videos there too. It's not on the screen though, for some reason. That's go to the next one. The next one over is the one I wanted to play anyway. That's this next one here. That's the this one here. This video we're gonna play might. Yeah, it's not on the big screen. Where you getting that one from? There's a closer play.
Use your left hand. There you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
Sound.
That's not playing. So the first play that I wanted to put up there was the
Almost there.
we almost had it. Was the one from last year's playoffs with the Cubs. You guys all remember the Wilson Contreras play?
So Ty and I are both Sox fans, so we of course agreed with the call. It's a great
but a
call.
lot of, I mean, that was one of the longer threads on Facebook last year, where everybody was.
It's one of the best catches in Major League Baseball.
Right.
If not the best.
Where's that video?
There's one on this one here is the Contreras play. Let's play that one real quick, and then we'll go back to the other one. Okay, so here's. Now that's the closing one. No.
Yeah, when can you make that bigger? When you're ready.
Let's just, if we got these videos, we'll just get that one transmitted in. Okay.
He did it that way, huh?
Oh, sorry. Who did I email last night? Yeah, the controls plugs in there too, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm gonna do something.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So here we go.
Only if the plays we saw went that slow.
There's what, all right, so what you got there? Well, let's watch this whole thing go through. This is high school.
Okay, so a lot going on there. What do we got?
It didn't look malicious at first, but then it became that way.
Okay, so with that, so it's I agree with you, and it's really important what you said though.
Well, at first, he didn't seem like he intentionally wanted to knock him down, but after the fact, the guy was like trying to fight with him, so it became intentional.
So let's just for a second, let even forget that there's obstruction or whatever. You're saying that you think that the contact at the plate was incidental, and then he pushed the guy.
Yeah.
So what do you do when that happens? So it's incidental contact at the plate.
Then you call it malicious and kicked him out.
Do you call malicious?
I think I'm warning them at that point. I'm just telling them, listen, don't do that again or you're out of here.
So is he out?
It's obstruction. He went into high school, he went towards the ball, towards the foul line, and then that's when he collided with the runner.
So that's why
there it is again.
No intent.
I would say.
Kind of watch the umpire too, if you can see him on this too. See what he's got. It's nice slow motion.
Yeah.
You see, the umpire's right
He
there.
didn't even touch the base.
Right.
So he's,
I think that's obstruction.
Yeah, that is.
But
this is high school.
High school.
He's fielding the ball, so it's obstruction.
yeah,
Right.
So it's obstruction.
But I agree with the contact that they showed this one.
So
Right.
but
So you have afterwards. I think it's a sports.
yeah, is it? Do you throw the guy out? But if you
pumped up after that, I can't blame a human.
Right.
no,
And you don't know what the catcher said.
but kind of the point I wanted to make was if we're just all agreeing, let's just for a second say we're all agreeing that that's obstruction and that collision was incidental.
Yes.
And then the shove afterwards, even if you decide to throw the guy out of the game, I don't think I would, he's not out. So I don't want anyone to walk away saying like every time a guy does something like that, he's out because that was obstruction. He scored. That was over. So once
the base.
well, yeah, I don't know if he saw it. I don't see if he touched the base or not. But let's just pretend for a second that he did. And he touches the base, or even I touch the base and I look at Ted and I punch him in the face. That doesn't. Yeah, I'm out of the game, but it doesn't mean I'm out.
Can you play that again? It looks like the catcher gets up and the catcher.
The catcher does get in his face. So I actually think that was initiated by the catcher. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I don't even think I'd call obstruction on this. I just call it baseball play. I mean, it was.
I think he's standing on top of the
Why
play.
are you calling obstruction? He can't.
Watch the catcher. This is in the act of fielding right here. The throw's coming in. Had the throw not taken a funny hop, he wouldn't have done it. But right there, that's obstruction.
Yeah.
All day long, that's obstruction in high school.
Okay, so does that guy get third now?
So there's a difference.
Well, his foot does come down on the plate, so he did.
Because high school rules say that you can't do that.
Right.
So again, the runner's gonna get home plate if you're gonna call obstruction. He's gonna get home plate anyway, because the throw went to the backstop. So what's the advantage of calling obstruction? Because it's delayed dead ball anyway. He's going to get home plate. What's the point? Is what I'm asking.
Well, you have to call what you see. Had the catcher caught the ball and tagged them, you still have obstruction, right? So you can't say, you can't all of a sudden say that you only got obstruction if you catch it. You just have to call the obstruction because that's what you see. And right, pardon me?
The other team might be arguing interference, so you have to.
Right, you have to be decisive. That's obstruction. Whether or not you have he's scored on the play because the catcher dropped the ball, but he gets that base anyway. Okay, he's made that call.
I see what you're saying.
Right.
Like that's kind of what I said before. Like,
Yeah.
the ball's away. Like
Right.
it is you have to identify it. Yes, it is obstruction. Do you have to make a big call? No, but it is obstruction though. Like you can't deny, even though it did. It's still the act was obstruction. If you'd end up with the ball, then you would have called it.
Because what might happen is the defensive coach might come out and say he interfered.
Right.
And so you have to have, like, that's why if you call, well, coach, I call obstruction. At least then the coach, okay, yeah, he called obstruction. I mean, he may not agree with it, but it makes it a little bit less of an argument if you call it at the time. And
you're right on top of it by calling it obstruction, and it stops him from coming out arguing malicious contact or interference or anything of that nature.
Right, done. We finally got Wilson.
Thanks.
All right.
Question?
When the runner pushes the catcher,
Yep.
if he had pushed him hard enough to get him out of the way and they're fielding the ball, and the second runner comes around
That's a
to
good point.
score,
Yeah.
now that's interference on his part,
Right.
and because he's
already scored.
retired,
Yeah.
or he's a runner that has
Then,
scored.
yeah, then the
they're
lead
supposed
runner's
to leave
out.
the field immediately by pushing him and causing the interference. Now that second guy closest, or whoever's coming in, the one closest
Yeah.
to home is now going to be out as a penalty for him doing that.
The way that I would, what I would,
If he keeps the catcher from being able to.
then you have interference, right?
Yeah.
Right, because obstruction's a live ball in high school, right?
Right.
So you've got a live ball, you've got obstruction, you have the runner safe. Now he's already scored. He can interfere, right?
He can interfere.
Right. As far as him pushing him, I think I'm letting that go as a testosterone thing in a big play like that. If they separate right away, like they seem to do in that video, I'm going to probably say something to the coach in between innings to talk to your boy. You'll know the tenor of the game you're working. If that's something that's been going on the whole game, you might have to eject the guy. But for what I've seen on that video, no.
On the video,
Right.
I wouldn't
Right.
be calling interference on it. But if he'd have pushed him enough to cause.
And
him not
if
to be
other
able to
things resulted because he was interfering with the catcher, you have interference.
Very unlikely.
He's here.
You're looking at home plate.
You guys let this online later? You guys let this online later?
I think it's online right now, actually.
I have to go.
Okay, yeah, you'll be okay.
I'll see you next Thursday.
Yeah. So here's this one here. You got to watch really carefully because this is the one that everybody on Facebook was arguing. Some guys actually said that if you're going to call that they would never call it and they would give up being an umpire because of it, because that's just baseball. But I think what it was just they were Cubs fans, and you could see. Watch the umpire. See where he's at. He's staying on the right or left shoulder, so he sees those swipe tags. So you're going to start third baseline extended. You're going to work with the play to see that. Look at that perfect angle he's got of it. And you can see Contreras, he was legal up until he kicked his left foot out and he blocked it. That left foot is what caused the obstruction there.
Question for you. He's received the ball before there's any contact at all, or before the guy swerves and misses the base.
And he hasn't impeded because he's going in full speed.
Because once he has the ball, you can block the
His
base.
body has not changed, deviated off from his intended path until the ball is, and his leg.
Yeah, watch the play. Watch where the ball is.
Watch the
and
runner.
watch his foot.
Watch the runner's path.
Right.
Oh yeah, he does.
Watch, I think on this angle, you can see his foot moves before the ball gets there, and that's what was the obstruction. There, see the ball, see his foot, he kicked that foot out before he had the ball, and that's, and the one thing about.
How did it change his method of sliding at all?
It blocked him completely.
It's not that.
Right.
There's no access. He's got to give him access.
No
his
access.
foot across, there's no access.
But his hand went, this is why, because I did question, but his hand was inside, he had access. I know your personal bubble when you were talking about that, I agree with that.
Yeah.
And I am interpreting, but his hand is going inside where the access is, and his leg, as it hits his elbow, and then he can't touch the base.
Yeah. There you go.
Where's the access where he doesn't have to go through his leg?
Well, if you could go 3 frames.
No. This is when the obstruction happened.
But once you have the ball,
He has the ball in his glove right there.
But he already kicked his leg out before that.
But his leg's out.
This is such a bang play.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't even, until the replay.
All right, yeah. So he doesn't have the ball. The ball's right above the runner's head.
Nothing's been impacted yet.
No, it
is. He's sticking his leg out.
right here.
How to change the runner?
He doesn't have to change the runner. There's no access.
There's no access.
There was no access. He blocked the access. The one advantage that the Major League Baseball has is they have instant replay. And I've been to a number of different clinics. I've been to Doane and the Mid-American. And I was fortunate enough one time to sit with Brent Rice, who's an instructor at Wendelstedt, the pro school. And we talked about this for about an hour about the different types of obstructions at the plate. You know, and one thing I gleaned from it was we talked about in the active field and everything. But the one thing that really stuck to me that he said was that a lot of times the major league umpires are coached not to call it if they're not certain. Like this guy, you've got a lot going on at the plate, and especially at major league level with that much speed and going on. So he's mainly watching, is the guy touching the plate? Is he safe or out? If he's not certain on the obstruction, they're going to send it to replay. You know, they've always got that as an over their shoulder thing. And that's what happened here. He didn't call anything. He had a great position on safe or out. He was able to make that call, but he didn't call any of the obstruction until it went to replay. And in replay, you know, he probably didn't even see obstruction. I mean, that happened so fast. On replay, when it slowed down, then the Cubs got rigged, right? They ended up losing the run, the Dodgers got the run on it.
That's why I asked the question before, when does the obstruction happen? And it's as soon as, so he's in the vicinity of home plate. He's sliding out to the outside because the catcher's there. He should be able to go to part of the plate standing up.
Look at how far he was out.
It does
Coming around third base. You look at
doesn't-
how
doesn't
far out
matter.
his base path, he's
Yeah.
established how far out he ran around.
Right.
third base
So
on
from
that
where
play.
he is though, where his direct line to the plate without going through the catcher.
The problem is the catcher should be moving until he's caught the ball.
Yes.
Right, and that's what cost Contreras was when he kicked the left leg out into the base path like that and blocked. You'll see when he slides, his arm is blocked from getting to the plate because it goes right into the shin guard.
If you look at the video, his elbow goes in and it hits his knee. He can't go any farther. I know, you see it on it.
Right there. Look at right there. Right, he's blocked.
Once it hits his knee, he can't go any farther.
Right. See, he
But
never
has the ball.
he never was able to touch the plate.
But
But the-
reviews, you see his
right.
hand get within 2 inches of home plate.
Right.
What
But
kicks
the
his arm back
right.
to turn his left leg.
Right. But the obstruction occurred before he had the ball. It doesn't matter once he has the ball and he's blocked no play because he's already obstructed the runner by getting his foot there.
So what point can you block the baseline?
When you have the ball in your glove. So had Contreras caught the ball and then kicked his leg out, then the replay would have given him the out on that play. All right, but since he did it the opposite way and he put his foot out first, caught the ball, then they've got obstruction.
I was serious when I asked, what are you doing about that on deck batter there? Because I'm not gonna.
As a couple,
Oh.
that was pretty simultaneous.
I don't think
I'm a
that's-
Sox fan, so
Yeah.
as a Sox fan,
I don't think he's
he was
expecting
saying
to
we're
play
around
at all.
third base.
Because that's what they're supposed to do, is tell them to down.
Well, if you want to try
Hey, guys, we're gonna move on to the next play.
We're gonna go to the next play.
So,
Whatever's next on the other one's on the bases. We're gonna shift gears. Yeah, we're gonna shift gears. This is the World Series a couple years ago, and this was actually a baseline play. Now watch. What's really cool on this one is watch the umpires. Watch how they handle this one. Watch the plate umpire, and this I think ended the World Series, right? It was the last play.
Ended the game.
So they think he's got him out, but the plate umpire was just right on top of it. He's watching because he's watching down the line. This goes into what you were asking about being obstructed at third base. Sticks the leg up, trips him. You see that guy's already got it. The third base umpire's already got it. It's all academic to that guy because he's calling him safe and he's pointing right away. See, that's the difference between a professional umpire and us. I mean, they're so fast and right on that stuff, really good like that. Huh? I only wish to be that good. That's what's funny when people knock the professional umpires on some of these posts. It's crazy. Everybody see the obstruction there? Everybody agree that's obstruction?
Well, and to me, the most important thing, everybody knows is obstruction, but the mechanics of the umpires there is flawless. 100%. And you're not, obviously it's a postseason game, so they have 6 umpires, but.
Well, one thing though, I'm gonna disagree. It wasn't flawless. Watch the home plate umpire using his right hand.
When he was pointing?
Right hand.
Well, he must not have heard me when I said use your left hand when you're pointing out the interference.
No, the home plate.
He's pointing down to the other umpire.
Yeah, he was pointing to the other umpire. He
Right.
gets off. Yeah, I think it's flawless.
He's playing one of those other ones. He's got a little league one. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's like a little league one.
Which one is that? Oh, this one.
Yeah, there's one.
The Sox are playoffs to get one.
Harsh.
So this one's a short snippet, and then I think we've got the full play here too. So there's the same play. This just shows the runner coming in. Now this is Little League, and this is where you're watching intent.
Like anyone trying to knock the ball out.
Looks like the catcher caught the ball too.
So, yeah, that's just a good example of just because it's a collision doesn't mean it's malicious.
Yeah, because he could have really nailed him.
Right.
Yeah,
You know
to
what the
me,
Little League rule is? And that, it's not the same as high school, is it? There's a lot of differences.
I don't know.
I don't know what the Little League rule is.
I don't know.
How would you call it in high school?
Yeah, if you're 16 years old, you drive the game. It's for the public.
Is that just a collision or is that anything malicious?
I think the one down there is the same play, but
Yeah, I think that's
shows the whole full play.
The runner ran into the catcher.
Well, the catcher wasn't he blocking?
Tried
Put out the
to,
ball?
because the catcher was
For
removing.
example, Melissa's contact.
Yeah.
See the obstruction. Try
When
that
he
one.
was trying to go to the side to
Yeah.
avoid hitting too hard. My opinion.
Yeah, it's the same play.
So here's the play. Now watch the runner and watch for intent here. You get a little bit better view of everything.